Okay, it's 3 o'clock. If everyone would please rise, and Debbie, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this is the Planning and Zoning Board / local planning agency. It's an advisory board which makes recommendations to the county commissioners who will make the final decision on these items. Items H1 and H4 are LPA items. Items on today's agenda will be heard by the County Commission on December 12th, 2024 at 5 p.m. When a motion ends in any kind of a split vote, a roll call vote may be taken to ensure accuracy. As a reminder, each member who makes a motion or a second needs to turn their microphone on so that your voice is on record. Speakers for public comment on agenda items will be given 5 minutes. At this time, if any board member has had any ex parte communication regarding any application, please disclose so now. All right, I'll need a motion for approval of the P&Z minutes for October 14th, 2024.
I'll make the motion.
A motion by Brian, second by Henry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passed unanimously. Item H1, please, sir.
Mr. Chair, before we get started with the agenda, I just, for housekeeping, so you all got a copy of the board policy and the ordinance relating to the membership and the voting rights. So just want to make sure that there are no alternative members. Everyone is now a full voting member moving forward, with the exception of the Space Force representative and the school board district representative are non-voting.
Do we have anyone for those spots? For the school board?
I'm not aware of any changes.
And the same with the space? All right, thank you, sir. Item H1, please.
Item H1 and H2 will be read into the record together. They are companion applications, however, they will need a separate recommendation. H1 RHR Construction and Development LLC requests a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment 24.012 to change the future land use designation from PI to Res 4 under application 24 SS 00012, tax account number 2320049 in District 1. RHR Construction and Development LLC requests to change the zoning classification from GU and RU-1-11 to RU-1-11 under application number 24Z 00042, tax account 2320049 in
Here.
It's at the discretion of the board if you'd like to table to the next P&Z meeting. I believe this is the first time this item's come before the board, so you're entitled to do that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to recommend that we postpone this to the next staff meeting.
We're going to need a recommendation for both item 1 and 2.
For H1 and H2 is postponed to the next available opening for the Planning and Zoning Board.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Robert, a second by Debbie to table items H1 and H2. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items will be tabled. Item H3.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item H3 is Schwa Inc. requests to change the zoning classification from BU 1 to RA 2-4. This went to the North Merritt Island Dependent Special District last Thursday with a recommendation of denial. The applicant provided a concept plan. That concept plan has not been reviewed for compliance with our code and regulations.
Do I get more than 3 minutes?
I'm sorry?
Do I get more than 3 minutes?
Yeah, yes, I'll give you 4. I'm just kidding. Name and address.
Yes.
Please.
Good afternoon, Planning and Zoning Board, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Kim Rezanka with Lacey Lyons Rezanka, 1290 US 1 Rockledge, Florida. I'm here on behalf of Schwa Inc. With me is the representative, Dan Dvorak, if there's any specific questions you have for him. This is a application solely for a zoning RA24 to allow the building of 9 townhomes on Courtney Parkway. This is adjacent to Courtney Parkway, as you can see from page 1 of what I provided to you. Egress Landing is to the east. Those are 9,000 square, well, they're allowed to be 9,000 square foot lots, but they are usually, for the most part, half-acre lots. And that was the first rezoning that was done in North Merritt Island for quite some time. Also, up to the north, you'll see the townhomes, the villas up there. Those were townhomes that were rezoned, approved through here approximately 4 years ago. They have been built. They are single-family ownership. I understand they might be rental properties, but they are single-family fee simple title ownership, just as the townhomes we're proposing would be. The property has a current future land use of CC and a zoning of BU1. Mr. Dvorak did, back in 2008, have a site plan approved for this to have 4 buildings of almost 18,000 square feet of retail. There's been no demand for retail in this area. So he's not been able to do anything with this property despite owning it since July of 2005. And the parcel is 2.47 right now with the commercial. And the BU1, he could put 4 townhomes on there, but as you know, costs have been driven up substantially, and he wouldn't be able to do it financially. That's why he's asking for the change from RA24, which is the same as the villas on the west side of Courtney. Page 2 of the packet I provided you are the villas that I referenced. To the south, just 3 parcels away, that is Sun Island Lakes. Granted, it's been there since the 1980s, but it currently, despite the TR3 zoning and the future land use, which is Res 2, it is currently at 4 units to the acre. Just to let you know, that's from the site plan that's on their website, that's on page 5. So it is more dense, the same density that we're looking at for this proposed project. I provided to you page 6. Mark Burns spoke at the South Merritt Island Special Defendant District Board. He was not in favor of it. His would be the most closest to this property. And I did want to show you that this zoning of EU2, if this project were zoned EU2, the setbacks would be, side setbacks are 15 feet. Currently, although we do have a concept plan, the intent is to leave a good 25 to 40 feet in its natural state between the strip that's owned by the HOA and the townhomes. Now, this was just to show you that the EU2 could be a 9,000 square foot lot as the zoning, which is 5 units to the acre, even though it's Res 2. Page 9 is that strip of land that would be between Mr. Burns' house and Schwa property. It's approximately 15 feet in width, so there's that extra buffer as well. So you have Mr. Burns' 15 feet plus the 15 feet of the side setback, of the HOA property, and then you would have at least a 25-foot setback, but the intent is to have a larger setback and to have the retention pond in the back there. And we can put this in a BDP if that's the choice of the board. I also put in here the North Merritt Island Homeowners Association bylaws. I'm sure you're all very familiar with this group. They did speak in opposition on Thursday night, and I did want you to know that they really had no option, because the purpose on page 11 is to endeavor all future zonings no more than 1 unit per acre. So they do show up at all North Merritt Island zonings and oppose it, and it's basically they have no choice. They do not represent 10,000 acres or 10,000 people, as they state. It's a voluntary organization. The last page is just a concept plan. There have been other concept plans since this time, and this hasn't been reviewed by staff. It's not binding. It's just to show you what the intent is to have the townhomes closer to the road with a cul-de-sac. Then you're going to have an amenity area and stormwater pond, and as much as possible is going to be left in its natural state. So there will be a large-size buffer. If you are inclined to approve this zoning and you want additional conditions, we can certainly look at those. As the staff report indicated, there's no anticipated material or adverse impacts on the surrounding area. There's no level of service issues regarding traffic. The corridor is anticipated to operate at 37% of capacity daily with this proposal. This proposal with 9 units only generates 9 trips per those 9 units per day. However, that commercial property at 18,000 square feet would have 55 parking spaces. So it would be a concrete jungle. It would not have any green space per se. And this is a less intense use than what could be built there currently in BU1. Business uses are not in demand. That was the intent originally. Mr. Dvorak was telling me he was driving home from the Space Center where he worked, and there was no place to stop and get a bottle of wine. So that's what he initially bought the property, but there's just no demand up there. And so he's trying to do something with the property, provide another alternative of housing other than 9,000 square foot lots or quarter-acre lots. And with all of the activity at the Space Center, additional housing in this area is needed. It is not going to be rental. It's not intended to be rental by Mr. Dvorak and his company. It's intended to be sold. With that, we're here to answer any questions, and we would ask a recommendation of approval for the R824 to allow the construction of 9 single-family owned townhomes.
All right, do we have any questions for the applicant board?
Yes, I have a question, but it would primarily with staff.
All right.
This is in the, I guess, the North Merritt Island Dependent Special District, is that correct?
Yes.
Are they the authority having jurisdiction?
I'm sorry, say that again, Mr.
Are
Sullivan.
they the authority having jurisdiction over planning and zoning issues?
So the way that it's set up is that they are an advisory board to this advisory board. So they make a recommendation along with the recommendation from you all, and that gets forwarded on to the board for their ultimate approval or denial of the application.
Okay, in the opening statements, I think you said Thursday they rejected it outright?
No, so their recommendation was for denial.
Denial, okay. And they've already voted on it?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm looking at the notice of hearing that I got off of Public Records, and it's dated October 31st. And they voted on the 14th, is that 2 weeks?
The meeting that they made the recommendation was last Thursday, which was the
Correct.
14th. Yes, sir.
But the notification, the notice of the hearing was issued on the 31st of October. That's only 14 days. Is that correct?
If you give me a minute, I can check to see when the notice was.
I'm looking at it. So who issues the notice?
Our agenda staff.
Okay, all right. So it may have been just an error, but Florida statute requires 30 days notice.
What statute are you referring to, Mr. Sullivan?
166.041, Section 1. If you want, I can read it. It's, the notice shall state that the substance of the proposed ordinance as it affects the property owner and shall set a time and a place for one or more public hearings on such an ordinance. Such notice shall be given at least 30 days prior to the date set for the public hearing. So apparently, and a copy of the notice shall be kept available for public inspection during the regular business hours, for the office of the clerk of the governing body. So that's Florida Statute 166.041, called Procedures for Adoption of Ordinances and Resolutions.
Yes, sir. So point of clarification, that is the process for municipalities to adopt ordinances and resolutions.
Okay,
We're a county. So technically, we fall under 125 with respect to processes for ordinance adoptions and resolutions. This is an administrative, or I guess it's an advisory determination in this case.
okay.
Yep.
All right, fair enough. All right, the key is that their board recommended denial. Is that correct?
Yes, they did.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And to clarify further, their board, it was unanimous, no, if I'm correct.
It was unanimous.
Any other questions from the board here for the applicant? All right, seeing that, I take it out to the audience. Does anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Okay. Sir, if you could come up. Well, he's raised his hand first, and if you want to come down to the front row, that way we can kind of move along when he gets done. I'll give you each 3 minutes to speak. And when you start, sir, if you could give your name and address for the record.
My name is Jack Ratterman. I live at 568 East Hall Road. I'm on the North Merritt Island Special District Board. I'm the co-chair, and I've been on the North Merritt Island HOA homeowners group, past president 7 years, past vice president 7 years. And both groups unanimously denied this application. And there were several reasons why, but since I have 3 minutes, I'll get to it here. We're looking at Administrative Policy 3A, Diminished Quality of Life. Administrative Policy 3B, Diminished Property Values. And Administrative Policy 3C, which is non-compatible with local land use. And the attorney pointed out that there's some townhomes north of here, the Crisafulli townhomes, and they were forced down upon us. The board and the community voted against them. We were told they were going to be sold, and they're not sold. They're all for rent. So now we're faced with a rental neighborhood. Only 2 have been rented so far as I know. That's it. So for them to say, yeah, this is compatible with other things in the neighborhood, this was compatible with something that we didn't want for the first place. You know, if you had a Bessemer furnace zoned up there and they wanted to put another one in, that wouldn't be quite right. Those apartments set a precedent. And I don't know if you have your packet or not. Do you have this packet that they sent?
Yes.
You have that map? Yes. Okay. How about on page 29? It says up at the top, U.S. soil hydrology map. And I was surprised. I went online and looked up the first one, aquifer and hydrate soil. Both of those are referenced to wetlands. So they go right through the property there, but it doesn't say wetlands. But if you look on Google that and see what it says. It tells you that. So in a roundabout way, they're skirting around that wetland. And then the height restriction. The height restriction is 35 feet. Which one of you would want to have a townhome 35 feet next to your house with a 20-foot setback? That's unreasonable. And then for them to say, oh, we're going to give a 25-foot setback along that one entry street there, that's a spike strip, correct? Okay, I won't ask who knows what a spike strip is. Probably nobody. A spike strip means they can't do anything with it. They can't sell it. They can't egress, ingress, anything. That's why they have to put in a road themselves, and they can't come off of that. So this whole thing is ill-conceived, and I ask you to deny it.
All right. Thank you, sir. Sir, if you could come on up and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. My name is Mark Burns. I live on 206 Norwood Street, and I am that property that they were talking about, that you mentioned my name earlier. Simply, I represent my wife, my parrot, and my 4 dogs. Okay, that's about it right now. I did 30 years in the Air Force. This is my final house. This is where I plan on retiring. I love the community. I love all my neighbors and this and that. I just real briefly brought up the wetlands. As I was walking the dogs yesterday, there's a couple of owls sitting right up there in the tree where they plan on taking them down. And there's bobcats that run through there, and there's lots of turtles and everything else. But that's not really my subject matter. The thing that I wanted to talk about is, they talk about the setback. I'm about 15 feet away from where they want to build a retainer pond. Basically, they're going to dig a hole. All the water slopes down from Courtney right to my house. I have an embankment. That water is going to go in that hole, and it doesn't go anywhere. It stays there, and it stays there until it's evaporated. And all you that live in Florida this long, you understand that means a lot of mosquitoes for me, my wife, and all of our fruit trees and our enjoyment out in our backyard. Not to mention for my 1-year-old granddaughter, there's a hole out there the size of whatever. I don't know. Are they going to put a chain link fence next to it to keep access away? I haven't heard anything about that. But I'm not, let's see. So the other thing is, and Spiros I don't think is here, but my neighbors that are not in Egrets Landing, they're constantly pumping water, constantly. Before a hurricane, they have to pump down their lake probably for about a week. It's so noisy. All you hear is just that water pump. And that's all they need is more flooding going into there. They have some real problems right there, and they drain it up through the street. They spend a lot of money on gas. And they don't need any more flooding in that area. They don't need any more water coming down that hill, filling up their ponds. The traffic was already mentioned and what have you. But my biggest issue really is just, how would you like to have a big hole, right in front of where these beautiful trees used to be, with a whole bunch of mosquitoes and the smell, when the foliage dies, it sits there and it rots. And it smells. And that's kind of what I want to tell you, that this is how this affects me. Obviously, it affects a lot of other people. But this is my retirement home, and I have to look at how these mosquitoes bite me and smell that in front of all my trees. Well, maybe I find another retirement home. But I don't know how I'm going to do that, because I spent all my money after retirement buying this house.
Right.
Okay? And I'm not going to get as much for this house when I sell it with that hole next to my yard. And by the way, I paid $25,000 lot premium for this lot because it's such a beautiful lot. Or hopefully will stay a beautiful lot. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Okay, I'm going to close it then for public comment. And Ms. Kim, if you could come back up and you hear some of the concerns.
Yes, sir. Regarding the North Merritt Island Special Dependent District Board, as you heard, Mr. Ratterman sits on that board. He also sits on the Nemahoa board, and he sits, and he's been in this area for a long time, and he didn't want the other townhomes. He sits on the Nemahoa board. He has to support their bylaws that says no less than 1 unit to acre. So obviously, his opinion is based upon those guiding principles. The board heard, there were a dozen people in the audience, they heard from 4 or 5 people. They just don't want any change. They don't want that lot developed. That lot is currently BU1. They could have a dozen different things there 25 feet from the property line. This is a less intense use and is compatible because it's single family. They didn't give any reasons other than we don't want it, we don't want townhomes, and we don't want apartments. These aren't apartments. These are single family ownership. Just the listing of the policies without evidence is insufficient to deny this request. Again, he's owned it for 20 years. He hasn't been able to develop it. He would like to develop it for single-family homes, which the comprehensive plan says we should have single-family homes and a variety of opportunities for people to have single-family ownership. Regarding the chrysophiles, the forced upon us, that was mentioned several times at the Special Dependent District Board. Again, they didn't want it. County Commission approved it because it is single-family ownership and it is compatible with 4 units to the acre that is in this area and other locations, including the mobile home park. If there is a wetland, they will have to abide by all the rules and regulations and won't be able to impact it, except for a nominal amount. They could impact it all right now in commercial, but if it's residential, they'll have to abide by the 1.8%. Regarding a height restriction, the EU2 is 35 feet as well. So townhomes, RA2, 35 feet, EU2, 35 feet. The height restrictions are the same. Regarding that spite strip, it's really owned by the HOA. It's a buffer. It's intended to be a buffer. As to the flooding, this area of Merritt Island has special restrictions on compensatory storage. That was adopted 4 years ago because of the flooding, and an engineer who designs something in this area has to basically certify with their life that it's not going to impact others. And this property would be subject to those strict requirements, and the whatever it is, the something you push numbers in and it pushes numbers out, and I don't remember what they call it because I don't know that many people have used it up here. As to fencing, whatever the requirements are for fencing will be done, and frankly, most people prefer a retention pond next to their home versus a 25 or 30-foot townhome. So that retention pond will act as a buffer, and again, there can be a condition to leave the natural buffer as much as possible. That's been done several times by this board and county commission. Finally, there is no evidence of devalued property. Right now, there's no evidence to support that, and that requires an MIA appraiser to do so. In conclusion, this requested zoning of RA24 is consistent and compatible with the existing and emerging development in the surrounding area, and keeping to the character of the predominantly single-family homes, which is mentioned in the staff report. So this is a less intense development, and we request your approval with any conditions that you deem appropriate. Thank you.
Hold on one second, Ms. Kim. Mr. Henry,
You ready for me?
I'm ready.
Well, they can all talk on North Merritt Island, how long they've been there. They probably should have named the island after me.
At least a road.
Been there a long time. Without that commotion, I was on the committee then when they keep relating to Crisafulli, and I'm not sure if there's any alignment to the Crisafulli.
They owned it at the time. I did the zoning
They
for
might
them.
have owned it
And I did the
then,
zoning
but they
for them.
certainly don't own it now. And I took the position, I was fairly supportive of that project because I was hoping that was going to be the end. And I took that position. I said, you know, we can live with it on North Merritt Island just a little bit. But then I watched today State Road 524. And now everybody says, well, Henry, they got one across the street. They got another one across. Now they got 6,000 units on 524. North Courtney doesn't need nothing more. We need more retail up there, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just against anything other than something retail up there, because our place is beginning to be a hodgepodge up there. So I can't support it no matter what you do. I'm holding hard on what I've done in the past, and I'm holding hard now, so I'm not going to support it.
Yeah, the only issue, and you may remember GoPort coming before you, it was the only multi-use plaza up there. It had a gym, it had an ice cream shop. It's now on Park and Ride for the port because they couldn't sustain itself. It had a sports bar at one point. You've got the 3700 Commerce, which is mini warehouses, warehouse units. It is not full. You've got right across from these townhome villas is a restaurant that's defunct. So there is no support for commercial development up there, especially after COVID. Everyone's going Amazon or Walmart or home delivery. So there is no, I understand everyone wants commercial up there. There's no call for it. You have a Dollar General, that may be all that goes up there. So again, this is North Merritt Island. This is, we believe, a good use of the property. And I understand, Mr. Menaboo.
Any other comments for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
the North Merritt Island Board voted against it. The North Merritt Island Board, or as I believe, they're actually elected. Is that correct?
They are.
Okay. Elected
Yes, they
as
are.
opposed to being appointed like we are. So my take on it is they have a much more personal interest in it than we do. And I think if they voted against it, I think I should support them.
Any other comments from the board up here?
Are there
I have
any
a question.
questions from, oh,
Is this planned to be a 3-story building?
No.
Or a 2-story?
no, it's planned to be two-story.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? So if it were to develop as commercial, where would the retention area or the detention area be located? Just curious, just for comparison purposes. Presumably on the eastern end, the rear side of the lot as well?
Gosh, I have it back at my desk. I mean, it's in a similar location. It would be towards the east.
Right, and Jeffrey, is there, or Mr. Ball, is there a requirement if they were to develop under BU1 to come in from of any of these boards to ask for any kind of approval?
So
Or just
I'm
be
not-
site plan approval?
I'm not an engineer, I'm a planner, so my
Fair.
understanding of how stormwater works is that they put it on this lowest part of the property.
No, I mean, in general, if they were coming forward and they had just a site plan for any commercial property, would that have to go in front of any public board? Or
No, so
It would
if,
just go through the regular route of site plan approval and go through all the
correct.
normal
So
processes?
if they were proposing a retail, commercial use on the property,
There'd
it
be-
has CC land use and B1 zoning currently, it would go through staff review under the site plan process.
that's it?
That's it, no public hearing.
Okay. And there's several BU1 parcels, as I look at the zoning map surrounding the area, that are not developed and presumably haven't been developed in, well, let's just say ever, given the
There's
signature, the
actually
aerial signature.
homes. There's homes on BU1 currently.
So from a property rights perspective, which, that was passed a year or two ago, I mean, I would support this from the respect that it sounds like they've tried to go BU1. It's been BU1 for decades. Obviously, it hasn't developed. To force somebody to keep a zoning category because that's sort of what they want, I think, isn't consistent with the property rights component of the state. And I do see it as a consistent use. It's transitional between the BU1 zonings and the single-family to the rear. There'd be all of the same, requirements would have to be met through, engineering, Brevard County, all the different outside agencies that would manage the wetlands, species, stormwater, flooding components. So because of those reasons, I would support this request.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Mr. Robert.
Well, I am a professional engineer and former drainage district engineer and a designer, and I've done land development down in Brevard County, Broward County, in Miami-Dade and Palm Beach, and there's literally 1,000 different ways you can do a retention pond. You can do storage vaults, you can do exfiltration, you can raise this thing up. So saying that it needs to be at this location or that location, it's really up to the engineer of record and
I
how
understand.
creative they are.
Sure.
So as far as, keeping people from developing their property, it was purchased at that business location. The overall planning is to make the main corridors business and beyond those corridors, make them residential. So the people obviously have spoken on how they feel, on what they wanted, and how they invested their money in their property. So we are an advisory board, and I've advised many clients on many things. Sometimes they like my advice, sometimes they don't. But I do respect the people who are the property owners, and they appear to have spoken, so I'm not in favor of this particular request.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I've been sitting on the West Melbourne board for about 10 years now, and on this board for about 2 years. And lately, every project that comes up has the neighbors going, "We don't want this here. Not in my backyard. I've already got mine. Nobody else can have theirs." what I'm finding is people are still coming to Florida. They're not going to stop coming to Florida if we do not give them well-planned, affordable places to live. Because the same people who are going, not in my backyard, we need affordable housing. Not in my backyard, though, but we need affordable housing. And one of the worst reasons that we do not have affordable housing is A, because of regulation, B, because the cost of just the cost of construction, and C, because that it's harder and harder to find a place to build it. People are not going to stop coming to Florida. If we do not give them good places to live, then we're going to end up just like New York and just like San Francisco, where you've got people living on the streets. They're going to be here. Then they get here and they don't have any way to get anywhere else. And when people want to do things with their property, I notice none of these people ever come up here and go, well, we got the money together and we were going to buy the property that we want to tell people what to do with. This person owns this property, and obviously I'm looking at that area. Yeah, there's nowhere to put anything business there. And there's all these big houses. My neighborhood, I live in an old neighborhood. My neighborhood was built in the 60s and the 70s. Yet, we have, right across the fence, there's commercial. There's a hotel. And then there's apartments. And there's assisted living. And this is all right where I can see it from my backyard. It doesn't bother me. These are my neighbors. And we have a great neighborhood. My neighborhood has become so desirable that because I have all this other stuff around me, that I couldn't afford to live there if I didn't already have a house. So, like I said, it becomes a little gnawing to constantly hear people going, not in my backyard, not in my backyard.
I'm the only backyard you're talking about. You don't have a retention pond next to you, do you?
I do. Sir,
It's not affordable housing.
hold on one second now. I give everyone their time to speak. Let's please be respectful.
That's
Are
all.
you good?
That's all I got to say about that.
All right. Well, I see we've got some up here seems to be for, some to be against. So I need a motion.
I make a motion that we deny this request.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion from Henry, second by Ron on item H3 for denial. All those in favor say aye.
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 Do we need a head count?
Please.
Who said aye?
I say aye.
You got everyone?
Yeah, it looks like it's 5 for the motion and 5 against, so it's a tie. So the motion fails.
Okay. You're all set?
Well, now you can take the alternative motion and see if you can have additional discussion or if everyone's set in their
Do you want to
position.
make a motion for approval?
I make a motion, we approve
Item H3?
item H3.
Second.
Okay, we have I'm sorry, sir, what was your name? Got a motion by Robert, a second by Debbie. All those in favor say aye.
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 So we need a show of hands.
Yes, please.
For aye.
It's 5-5.
Okay, stayed 5-5. So you can either table it or either motion will be brought to the board with no motion in favor or against.
We're fine with the tie, we'll put it on condition. We also would consider conditions, if that would change anyone's minds, if they want to put conditions in a BDP. But I haven't heard that from anyone. That would be the other option.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Item H4.
Item H4, Christopher Espanet, represented by Kimberly Rezanka, requests a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use designation from Res 1 to Res 4 under application 24 SS 00013, tax account number 2963382 in District 3.
Is the applicant here?
Good evening, Chairman, members of Planning and Zoning, actually LPA for this one. My name is Kim Rezanka, Lacey Lyons Rezanka, 1290 US 1 in Rockledge, Florida. I'm here on behalf of Christopher Espanet, who is here in the audience. Also with me is Jim McKnight, a professional planner, whom I will pass out his resume when he speaks and ask you to consider his testimony to be expert testimony. This is a request for Res 1 to Res 2. It normally would be a very simple request. We have an inconsistent zoning with a future land use that's of greater density. However, there is some discrepancy as to what the comprehensive plan says and what the South Barrier Island law really means and how it's applied. I had been working with Mr. Espanet for 2 years to find a way to help him develop this property. As you can see from page 1, he purchased this in 2005. It had just recently become a condominium. When you try to find this, you pull up the whole condominium of 1.7 acres, but this is really a 0.7 acre piece of property. Mr. Espanet owns condominium unit 1, and he tells me he checked with the zoning office before he bought it. But again, who knows if the condominium were read properly or whatever. So he believed he could build one single family home. He lives in Delray Beach. He bought it intending to move up here as his forever home, and now he can't build on it. If this isn't changed, he cannot build on this property. So the purpose of this, again, is to allow him to build one single family home. As you can see on page 2, this is the aerial map from your package. It shows the yellow square. On the right side is one home. On the left side, the vacant property is Mr. Espanet's property. You can see that there's condos. It's actually a condo to the west, but they're more like duplexes. There are duplexes to the north, single-family homes to the south, condominium due east, and then some very tall 2- and 3-story homes along the beach there to the north and south. As you see on page 3, it actually shows the whole property, the 1.7 acres. We're only seeking the 0.7 acre future land use amendment to Res 1. The other owner is not involved in this property. You'll see also almost everything in the future land use map is Res 1. Just immediately to the north on the beach side, there is some residential 4. And I point that out because this Res 2 actually can serve as a transition between the Res 4 and the Res 1. This is the same issue we had with Sunterra in Palm Bay down south. The comp plan, as you'll see, doesn't say adjacent transition, it just says transition in the area. So when you look at this page 4, you'll look at the zonings. Currently, with this Res 1 future land use over RU210, RU24, RU28, SR, these are all inconsistent zonings with the future land use. And the county did this. So as I was talking with Mr. McKnight, what happens if these townhomes are blown away by a hurricane? Are they going to be rebuilt because they're inconsistent? I just raised that because this is a huge problem down here in the South Beaches. Page 5, coastal high hazard area map. This property is not in a coastal high hazard area, and that is extremely important because of the comprehensive plan policy that says you can't build in the coastal high hazard area. Page 6, this is from the property appraisers. This shows Mr. Espanet's property, the DeCourt's property, which is the built condominium unit, and then the condominium common area. The declaration of condominium on page 7. I do want to, well, you'll see. This is just a few pages. This was recorded like 2 months before Mr. Espanet purchased the property. And it does have on page 9, it shows the Unit 1 and the Unit 2. It also shows an ingress and egress easement of 75 feet. Looks like 75 feet by 181 foot. That's an easement area. Granted, it has not been approved yet by the county, but that's an administrative approval for an easement. And Unit 2 can't complain. So if this is approved, then he would go to building permit, and we would go through administrative approval through Mr. Calkins to get an easement approved. All we need is a 20-foot easement under 62102. Page 10, Mr. DeCourt, he's the one that owns the built condominium unit. Page 11 and 12 are pictures from Zillow that show the area even better than the property appraiser's map. Actually, beautiful pictures on Zillow, like 67 of them. This was recently sold to the DeCourts. You can see that all of what's around it. You can see the vacant lot that's Mr. Espanet's. It would be next to the pool for the condominium to the west. You also see the trees along, the trees along A1A and along the Kasiki Trail to the south there. Page 12, again, this is partially a two-story house, so it does have some height as well. And then page 12, that's the driveway. So it is heavily wooded. And I only raised that because there's some comment in the staff report, it might harm the visual buffer to the scenic route to the beach. Well, they're not going to see it anyhow, and they're already blocked by the three-story homes that you see on the top of page 12. The Hotsons, that's page 13, they sent in an email. And granted, I just got that package before I got here of all those that came in Friday, so I don't know what's in that package of comments. So this is the one that I did have. Mrs. Hotson, she did not want a trailer park. This is not going to be a trailer park. A trailer park requires TR3 zoning and 10 acres. This is going to be one single-family home, which we've put in a binding development plan. You have the wrong version in your packet. I have it for you here today. Starting on page 14, a binding development plan based upon the future land use. Paragraph number 3 on page 15, developers shall limit density to one single-family dwelling and permitted accessory buildings if he wants to have a shed or a pool. That's why that was in there. This was submitted to the county on October 28th. That somehow didn't make it into your packet. You have the wrong version in your packet. Page 18. The reason this is acceptable is because the county has done this before. They have approved a BDP for a future land use amendment with Dunkin' Donuts. When Dunkin' Donuts had to rezone in North Merritt Island, so it had to change the future land use to CC so it could have a drive-through. This is next to Divine Mercy up in Merritt Island. So there is precedence for this, and this is the Dunkin' BDP that I was involved with and that County Commission asked for, recommended, and approved. Another instant, and this is under 621255 that says you to me, my reading, simplified, you can have inconsistent future land uses and future and zoning categories so long as the BDP makes them compatible. And that's what this BDP is intended to do. I show you another one, Island Forest Preserve. I think Mr. Minimoo knows this one very well off Crisafulli Road. This one has Res 1 future land use, but it wanted an SR zoning. So that was done, and you'll see on page 22 where it's all Res 1, but they do indeed, page 22, have SR zoning. And this was to limit the density to 1 unit to the acre. So we're limiting the density to 1 unit for a Res 2. It's the same type of concept for a binding development plan to limit the use to make it consistent with the future land use. Page 27. This is where staff and the applicant's representatives disagree. I initially thought this should be changed because, to me, Objective 7 and Policy 7.1 are inconsistent. The way these things usually work is you start with A. If you don't meet A, you don't go further. So limit densities with the coastal high hazard area and direct development outside of this area. This property is not in the coastal high hazard area. So therefore, the rest of this doesn't apply. And it doesn't make sense that say you can't develop on a 0.7 acre piece of property for a single family home. So the staff report says this has been an historical interpretation. I think it became historical because of this property in 2018 or 2019. I know it was an issue with the condominiums, the Dieter condominium that we did 2 or 3 years ago, but that had the proper future land use. And Mr. Calkins opined, oh, that's fine, you can change the zoning. Well, changing zoning here doesn't help Mr. Espanet. We have to change the future land use or he cannot develop. So again, the staff has said it's historical interpretation. Mr. McKnight's going to give you a different interpretation, and you are permitted to listen to Mr. McKnight because of Constitutional Article 5, Section 21 on page 28 of your packet, Judicial Interpretation and Statutes and Rules. A state court or officer hearing may not defer to administrative agency's interpretation of a statute or rule and must interpret the statute or rule on your own. So you do not have to abide by the interpretation of staff, and you are perfectly permitted to make up your own mind of what the comprehensive plan means and was intended to mean. Finally, I cite to you page 29, which Ms. Saunders referenced a few minutes back, private property rights and local decision-making process. Mr. Espanet cannot do anything with his property if this does not change the future land use. There's no way to get a variance to the lot size because there's no way to get a variance to the comp plan, and therefore this is the only potential way to have use of this property. Also, I did want to let you know, Mr. Espanet has been paying taxes on this property since 2005. I know the page I gave you said the value was $155,000. This year it's $225,000. I'll give a copy to the clerk to show the property appraisers. And pulling the taxes that were paid, he has paid almost $41,000 in taxes since he's owned it for property he cannot use. So with that, I'm going to ask that Mr. McKnight come up. I'm going to hand out your resume, his resume. He'll give you a little bit of an overview. I think many of you know Mr. McKnight, and he will give you additional information to consider. Thank you.
For the record, I am Jim McKnight, and I am a professional planner. Most of my life was spent as a city manager, but I am doing that nowadays, and it's very enjoyable most of the time. I think what is important in this seems to be a lot of discussion for 7/10 of an acre that's intended for one single family home. Staff's interpretation, and staff has every right to interpret things the way they see them. I'm not going to debate that with them. But the objective that says, Objective 7 in the coastal management, limit densities within the coastal high hazard area, okay? And direct development outside of the area. This is outside of that area. This meets the objective of directing it outside. So we're not requesting that we put something on Res 1, we need Res 2, and we recognize it has to be Res 2. It is also a good transition when you do that. Now, I understand it's a small piece, okay, we all agree with that, but it is directly behind a single-family home, and it is before you get to the multifamily. So from a compatibility standpoint, it's exactly the way you draw it up in planning. So I don't think policy 7.1 really comes into play because you can't get beyond the overall objective because you have directed development outside of that area. You also have a major inconsistency between the existing zoning and the Res 1 that is on the property for the comp plan. You've got zoning that's everything out there. Okay, I've looked at the map and made my eyes cross because you've got some multifamily, some single family, different types of single family, and that's how it's developed over the years. But now you have a residential 1 on it, which limits someone from being able to build simply a single family home on 7/10 of an acre. To the north, you have SEU, you have the road with an RU 210 zoning to the south, you have RP to the east, and you have RU 210 to the west. It cannot be said that this doesn't fit the neighborhood. It does. It absolutely fits the neighborhood from a planning perspective. I read through the guiding principles for development, and though that's not really where we're at, if you read through the guiding principles for development, this is exactly what would be intended for this piece of property. It's the piece that comes up because you're not increasing residential density because you're building a single home on a single lot. So, you know, Ms. Rezanka has covered most of the area on that, but from what I see, and I read through some of the input about statutory noncompliance, again, we're requesting a change to the comp plan, and therefore, I don't think statutory noncompliance comes into play. The environmental invulnerability, I think whatever gets built there meets the same criteria. So I don't think that really plays much into it. It is a critical state concern designation, and while I understand the critical state concern, it is not a coastal high hazard area. And the comprehensive plan inconsistency, again, this is addressing 7/10 of an acre, one unit, one home, and therefore this would eliminate the inconsistency that's being brought out. And while binding development plans aren't normally used on comp plan amendments, it has happened and it has been done, and I've seen it done in places I've been. But it's just very unusual. I will give you that, but it does happen. And in this case, it would make sense because then everybody would know what you're getting on that property. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have, but in my opinion, this meets the intent of what is in the code, and I think it goes outside of what the state was doing when they were trying to limit density. Okay, they weren't trying to create a situation where somebody couldn't develop a single-family home on 7/10 of an acre.
Jim, how many, Mr. Chairman, sorry?
Yes, sir.
How many square feet is the house?
Proposed?
Yes.
That I do not know. Chris?
4,000?
4,000 square feet.
And is that under roof or? Yeah, okay.
So we're talking about what? 15% of the property? Something like that.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Mr. Bryant.
Forgive me if I'm a little confused on this, but who owns that house that's immediately adjacent?
The one out front towards
To the
A1A?
east, to the east, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's page 10. It's page 10, Mr. DeCourt, Mr. and Mrs. DeCourt.
Yes.
Because when we look at it on aerial view, it looks like the same owner owns the entire parcel.
Yeah, but it's not. There's some maps in there that show that
Just our imagination?
Yeah, no, it's not. It's divided.
I mean,
You have
it shows
one
a divided
acre.
line, but it just shows one owner for
Yeah.
both parcels.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at page 6 of the packet I gave you, when you want to search by condominium, you have to search in the property appraiser's website by condominium as opposed to owner. And when you do it by the Kasiki Trails condominium, page 6, it shows the 3 owners. As does the condo docs, which shows the unit 1 and the unit 2.
Which page 9 shows the clear division of unit 2 and unit 1.
Mr. Chair, can I jump in for a second? I just provide some clarification for you all.
Yes, sir.
So in 1992, the board adopted the South Beaches area plan, where the board directed staff to reduce the densities on the majority of the property down there to Res 1, based on a number of factors. There were several properties that remain the Res 4, but the majority of the properties was designated as Res 1. This property, along with all the properties in the South Beaches, is part of the critical area state concern, which you all decided to transmit up to the state, and the board last week decided to. With that, there is regulations that limit the density designations in that area. So going from Res 1 to Res 2 is a density increase because you're going from 1 unit to the acre to 2. That's a density increase. As far as the history of the property, sometime in 2005, the property was split using a condo dock with the house that was in front to the property to the rear. That property before it was split was 1.7 acres. So the front property is 1 acre. The back part of it is 0.7, which is not in conformance with the Res 1 land use. And that's why we're here today. So if this board recommends approval, this will be sent to the Board of County Commissioners as well, and this would be reviewed under the state coordinated review because it's part of the critical area state concern. And then it would come back for you all under the adoption process as well.
Do we have any other ones? Because there's that's peculiar, that A1A section. Do we have some more if we open the door here, or that's going to be?
I would tell you from a staff perspective that it would set a precedent. Yes, sir.
Jeff? Rob Sullivan. So primarily this is a preventative issue from staff looking downrange based on the area of critical concerns that has gone to the state. And we don't want to open a precedence for mission creep for later development to use this as a precedence for something.
So to answer your question, and it's going to go in a roundabout way, so this application would, the way we are interpreting 7.1 and that is to restrict residential density designations within the South Beaches area. This property would do that. So
Only in a zoning aspect. I mean, I'm very sympathetic to the owner.
So that is from a land use perspective.
Right.
Not from a zoning perspective, because that's a separate issue outside of what we're discussing today.
So, I mean, the impasse right now is the Res 1 and the Res 2.
Correct.
And, a solution, because the owner is not increasing density. And then this goes back to the owners, and what are you recommending to go to Res 2? But that would establish a precedent? And so now, that is the conflict between staff and yourself.
Well,
I don't see a problem with approving it as Res 1.
Well,
But I'm trying to figure out why you need it as Res 2.
because it's Res 1 right now, and you can't build on property that's less than an acre when it's Res 1. And I disagree that it sets a precedent, because this is a legislative decision, a policy decision of whether it makes sense for this particular piece of property. So if you have another one similar to this, I'd be really shocked, because I'd have heard about it by now. So this is not going to set a precedence, because each piece of property is looked at individually. And because it is a comp plan amendment versus zoning, it's a legislative policy decision.
Right.
So I don't think it sets precedent, and he just can't build on it because it doesn't, it's too small of a property for the residential one, which requires 1 unit per acre. Only allows 1 unit per acre.
Well, you have your binding agreement, builder's agreement. Can't you guys get together and have a beer or something?
Trust me,
Mr.
Mr. Ball has worked with me for 2 years.
Yeah.
He really has, and you can't get a variance to the comp plan. There's no way to do it.
That is a difficult.
So, I mean, I wish there were a way to do it, but.
So is it true that this is miszoned? That we cannot, as a county, zone property to make it where it can't be used?
Right, but
Isn't that true?
the county didn't do this. This was done by the person that created the condominium, the prior owner to Mr. Espanet. But yes, it is true. You couldn't
Well,
zone.
the county puts out the zoning.
Right, yes.
You can't make your own zoning because I would change mine to something.
Let me go
But
back for a
there's been a
second.
number of times people have come before you and said, I need to change the zoning because it's incompatible with the future land use, or
Ms.
vice versa. I mean,
Ms.
that's a lot
Rezanka.
of what you say.
I'm sure that staff has
Let's
thousands.
hold on 1 second.
Go ahead.
And yes, sir, you got the floor.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. The request is to increase density. Right now, they're allowed 1 unit to the acre. Res 2 would allow 2 units to the acre. So that's why they have to have the 2 units to the acre to comply with the .7 aspect of the zoning. What they're trying to utilize the binding development plan is to say that we'll only build 1 unit on that property. But I think that there's been a lot of discussion, but when you look at 7.1, policy 7.1, I think it is very clear in the limitations that the board has adopted in the comp plan. It says Brevard County shall not increase residential density designations for properties located on the barrier island between the southern boundary of Melbourne Beach and the Sebastian Inlet. Doesn't talk about a coastal high hazard area. It gives you a definitive line from the south Melbourne Beach to Sebastian Inlet. And historically, we have not entertained any land use changes which would increase density. There have been a few zoning where people have had a higher land use density where they would, could change the zoning to qualify to meet that. Those have been allowed.
But Todd, anywhere else in Brevard County, we can.
Yes, sir. Any place outside of that area, I would say that you could.
So this could increase density down there.
It will increase density from a land use standpoint. Yes, ma'am.
All right, and I live down in that area in the South Beaches, and they were pretty adamant about that, but did not want to increase density.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ron.
the applicant to speak very eloquently about why this is not a zoning change, a density change. And my recommendation is she take that eloquent speech to the county commission. To me, we've got a policy, and it's very clear what the policy says. It's very clear what is being requested violates that policy. I, for one, will not vote to recommend approval because it violates the policy. Now, if the county commission wants to do that, it's their policy. They can change their policy.
Right.
I don't think we have that authority to do.
I agree with that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
is it not true that we did enter into an agreement, that this county entered into an agreement with the state that we must make people's land usable? That you can't deny the use of a person's property. This land is unusable the way it is zoned. You can't do anything on it. You can't build 7/10 of a house. Although some people try.
If I could clarify, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Just with respect to the timeline, in addition to what Mr. Ball and Mr. Calkins have already said. So in 2005, the property was split, which created a substandard lot, right? And that restricted the property owner at that time. It wasn't a creation of the Board of County Commissioners that's restricting the use of the property. It was the property owner at the time splitting the lot improperly that has created this limitation on the current owner, who bought it subject to that limitation.
Well, we've found a lot of ways why they can't, but it seems like we need to find a way that they can.
Is that owner
Or,
that split that property in 2005 still the owner of the east section?
No. No, that was Mr. Lally. He sold it to Mr. DeCourt. I have to respond because I believe there's we disagree with staff. You don't have to hold what the staff says as gospel. When you look at the objective, we meet objective 7. 7.1 is inconsistent with that. We don't get to 7.1 because objectives trump policy. And so this is a legislative decision, a policy decision that you all get to recommend. And yes, it did happen in 2005, and Mr. Espanet apparently went and talked to staff and got misinformation, and they can't be held to that. So we are trying to make it buildable. If you look at Objective 7, we meet it. Therefore, 7.1 is either a typo or inconsequential or inconsistent. And you can choose to look at 7 and not 7.1. And you're probably going to hear from people who disagree. But this is a policy decision, and the Constitution says that you should not defer to people and use your own judgment. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to hold up the board here. We're going to take this out for public comment, and so we can hear what the citizens are saying. Is there anyone want to speak for or against this item? Sir, if you'd like to come up and state your name and address for the record.
You know, Todd,
Go ahead, come on up.
the one thing that
No, just wait one second.
dwelled on everything that's been said, I fully understand, but you know, it's amazing. Nobody's missed a beat on the taxes. He's gotten to pay those the whole time. You know, might say that's a little bit disturbing, but, you know, unfortunately, it just, you know, I'd be a little disappointed, I think. I don't know if it has any impact. I'm just saying that here, the tax side, they didn't miss a beat. They chopped it up and then put it in the register, so.
Sir, if you could state your name and address for the record.
My name is John Chalford, address 103 Kasiki Trail, Melbourne Beach, Florida. I live directly to the west. In other words, there you go. The lots that in question are pool, and my building is the first building I live in there. I realize I can't see the ocean because of the 7-story that was there forever. But the lot was, as they said, a 1.7 acre lot. And the owner broke it down into 2 lots because he couldn't get it sold. 1.7 acre, he, figured he could get more money. So he broke it in 2. So that's the story on that. But my question is, how will the new owners get to their lot in the back there? That's what I'd like to know, because as they said, or whoever wrote that, it's landlocked. They can't enter it from our side, and they would have to enter it from A1A. Okay, let that go. But still, there is this Barrier Island area of critical state concern, and every septic tank, every whatever that's built on there is going to really put a lot of strain on the whole ecosystem there. The owner is going to have to build up. They're going to have to fill in because the whole area is in like a little lower than anywhere else, so they're going to have to fill in, which may cause that water to drain into our pool. But that's okay, that can be probably prevented somewhere. I just don't, everybody talks about cutting the density down, and yet they keep building it up. There is a lot to the south of this lot. It's lot 5660, which eventually will come, if they get their way, that will come under the same condition, and all of a sudden you have God knows what. What we're trying to prevent is naturally something like what the Harbor Island up there near the 7-Eleven, and the Ocean Ridge people, there's single-family homes, and then there's a 3-story plus a garage right next to them. So they don't get any sun any time of the year, you know. So it's, they say 1-story, I don't know, 2-story, I don't know what they're going to put there. So we need more info. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Does anybody else want to speak for or against this item, or I'm going to, sir, come on up. And if you would state your name and address for the record.
Sure, I'm Doug Page. I'm at 122 Kaziki Trail. I live around the corner from John. So any case, so I've heard lots of stuff this afternoon, and it's clear that the property owner knew or ought to have known when they bought the property what the zoning was. I also heard tonight that there's one philosophical approach of finding ways to help people use their property. Now, it seems to me if you knew what the zone was going into it, you may have reflected, you may not want to buy it. And if we knew it was a piece of cake to go change the zoning, maybe we would have gotten together and bought the property. But we didn't, and we recognized what the zoning was. It appears that the owner had it for 19 years and now wants to build on it 19 years later or so. That's my understanding. And we don't really know what's going to go on the property. We are 4,000 square foot single family home. Where's the septic? Where's the sewer going to go? I think John eloquently made comments about the issues with the leachate going into the Atlantic. And I guess I just have one additional comment that the board now has documents that the public does not. As of immediately starting before this meeting, the applicant's attorney handed out documents that are not part of the public record, that we have no idea what's in it. And it just seems that there should be more public time to review and comment on documents that are provided at this hearing. Okay, well, that's my 2 minutes. Thanks.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else want to speak for or against this item? Ma'am, if you could come on up. And state your name and address for the record.
I'm Catherine Odom. I live at 5721 C Lavender Place in Melbourne Beach. And our community is 138 homes just to the north of this property. We are South Shores Riverside. We're made up of the large homes across the street, a few of those homes. Within the west side of A1A, we have single-family homes, we have townhomes, and we have condominiums. I don't know if you received emails from people. There was a mix-up in the communications regarding who was to be copied on this. I think some of your emails went to the city of Melbourne, so you may not have gotten those. But the majority of the people that I've spoken to are opposed to this for the single fact that we are now a state area of critical concern. And as that, we need to be careful that we don't set up the precedent, which may or may not, be considered a precedent. I don't want to see this happening throughout the community. I feel badly for our potential new neighbor, excuse me, that he purchased a home that did not have zoning that would accommodate him. What we can do about it is beyond anything I can understand. And I do understand that there is an easement there that will be used as the driveway.
Right.
And that's really all I have to say.
Okay. Well, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Anybody else want to speak for or against this item? Okay, I'm going to close this for public comment. Ms. Kim, if you could come back up.
Briefly, thank you. Again, this isn't zoning, it's future land use. It's a legislative policy decision versus zoning, which is strictly if you meet the requirements, then you should be considered. So there is an easement. It's in your documents. It's a 75-foot easement that he would have access, subject to approval by Mr. Calkins or his designee. Mr. Espanet actually went to Clayton Bennett in 2018 to start this process, and Mr. Bennett got shut down and didn't want to fight. And I get it, because this is not an easy fight. This is trying to get people to understand the difference between policies, objectives, and goals, and the fact that this is a completely unbuildable without a change. This would not have sewer. It would have the high-density nutrient reduction septic system as in your staff report. And just regarding Ms. Odom, we do have the zoning, but if you look at the zoning that her development has, that's RA 210, SEU, RU 24, RU 17. It's all over the place, most of it inconsistent with Res 1. So again, we are trying to make the zoning consistent, and we can't build we could build under RP. He could build a house under RP, but he can't build anything because of the residential one and the size of the lot. Yes, he thought he did his due diligence, and now he's stuck, and it's something he didn't create. So we would ask that you consider our arguments, consider our statements that, let me see, that the objective controls over the policy on page 27, and that one unit is not going to impact the environment, the flooding, the birds, or anything. And even if it were, he would have to comply with all the zoning codes, but it's not, and it's not going to stop the visual impact, which is the only thing that came up.
Well, there's been a lot said from staff and board. Now, you said someone I think said there was a Res 2 with a BDP.
That was, yeah, that was not in this area. That was in Merritt Island, that we used a BDP to make the zoning consistent with the future land use change. And that was the Dunkin' Donuts in Merritt Island.
I remember that. That's Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes, yes, sir, right next to,
For the drive-through.
for the drive-through. And
It's
here we're
better to
making
have
it
donuts in
consistent.
a house.
So everyone knows that there's going to be one single-family home and not an 85,000 square foot commercial center, which is also permitted under the condominium docs and under RP. He just wants to build a house. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, hearing that, I bring it back to the board.
Can I ask staff a question?
Yes,
quickly?
ma'am.
So, Mr. Calkins, so I heard Mr. McKnight say that it's unusual but can be done, a BDP with the land use. Can you speak to that a little bit? If they're doing a Res 2 land use that foreseeably would increase the density, but they're willing to restrict it to 1, would that be consistent with 7.1 in your mind then?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the last part of that question?
So if they were to restrict it to the 1 unit, would that help with the consistency of this policy 7.1 by not increasing the density in your mind?
I think the problem is with the Res 2 future land use that they're requesting, because I see that as a density increase, which, their position is that the objective is what we should be enforcing. But if I just enforced objectives, I wouldn't be here very long, because the comp plan is full of policies, and we have to enforce all of the comp plan. And so
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Mr. Bryan.
It's for staff. When was the law put in force that restricted increase in density to the south beaches?
The study, which was the South Beaches Area Plan, was adopted in 1992.
So that law was in force before this property was split. Who's takes the responsibility of allowing that split to have taken place, since technically it was probably done illegally?
Well, my understanding is it was split through a condo plat, which staff does not review condo plats.
yeah, the condo plats are reviewed by the clerk of the court's office by statute.
So, staff, there was no opportunity for your staff to review the partition of that property. Is that correct?
To the best of my knowledge, the county staff did not have any review of that document.
All right, thank you.
So if that property had stayed one parcel, there would have been one tax bill, and probably similar to the tax bill that sits on that single house now. But instead, now the county gets the enjoyment of two tax bills at a much higher price, in which the owner cannot build on it, but he's being charged taxes on it. Am I correct?
I can't address what or how the tax collector taxes properties. That's outside of what our staff does.
So I realize this is planning, not tax, but I have a problem with the fact that he's being told he can't use that property, but he's getting taxed on it. So this, again, isn't for this board to address, him not having to pay taxes on it, but for almost 20 years of taxes, I think that this needs to be reviewed, maybe between you and the tax department, to try and figure out what can come to fruition to help this gentleman.
We can do that. We can talk to them. I think that the challenge, though, is that this property is inconsistent and it's substandard. It wasn't done by us. It was done by an action of an individual. And so, properties sold every day that we have no part of, or we are not included in regulations. Where we come in is when people try to develop, which is where we are, where we started 2 years ago.
Yeah, but I'm sure he's paying fire fees and all sorts of other tax fees for a property that's unbuildable that he can't use. So at the end of the day, you guys didn't do anything wrong. The person who divided that property up did. And there's got to be a way. He's not going to get his money back. Okay, let's say you lift the taxes and he doesn't have to pay taxes anymore on it. That's great, but he's still out $250,000 for a property he bought that he cannot develop. And let's be realistic, it is developed land.
The request is to put a single-family home on there, and it's not, doesn't have the proper land use density for that.
I'm just going to add to Brian's, if this was anywhere else, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
If it were outside the...
If it was on Merritt Island, we wouldn't have a discussion.
Correct. There may be other issues, but this would be the one. It would be this particular policy.
We make the beaches unique. I understand. That's good.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for the applicant. It was brought up about access. Is there a plan for how to get access to this property?
Yes, sir. If you look at the condominium docs, I think it's page 10 or 11, there is an access easement on that property. And the process is to make an administrative application that would go through Mr. Calkins or his designated, say, hey, this is where we want to put our driveway, and there's already a bona fide easement, and they hopefully would recognize the easement to allow him to have access.
And that current owner's not having a problem with that issue?
He has no choice. It's in the document he bought. I mean, and I don't know if he does or not, but he would have no choice. I mean, it's in the condominium docs. He agreed to it when he bought the property.
At his expense or the?
At Mr. Espenet's expense. I mean, there's already a driveway there. The current owner, Mr. DeCourt, may want that used, may want it next to it, but it's 75 feet. There's plenty of space to put a 20-foot driveway.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, are we done with discussion on the board?
Well, we can ask that. Any other comments by the board? I guess we're done with discussion.
I move that we take staff's recommendations and deny this request.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion by Robert, a second by
Erica Orris.
Erica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're going to need a show of hands. Okay, we have 4.
Motion fails, you're going to have to take another vote.
We're going to need another motion. Someone want to make a motion to approve? And we take a vote?
I make a motion, we approve item H4 with the BDP, yes.
I need a second. Help me out, staff.
Mr. Chair, I must not have understood the previous vote. It looked like it was 4-6, and now there's not a second for the approval. So maybe we need to take another toll. We have a vote on the floor, a motion on the floor, rather. Doesn't seem like it's tracking.
We have a motion for an approval. I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second by
Ms. Saunders.
Sonia?
Saunders.
Sonder. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We need a show of hands for the approval. So we have some undecided. That was confusing.
Yeah, frankly, I apologize for my ignorance. I'm not understanding either. So it looks like it was 4-6 last vote,
Correct.
and now it's 3-7?
No.
I think you got some abstentions.
Yeah.
You can't abstain. You have to vote, unfortunately, unless you have a conflict, which I don't think anyone does.
So what do you want us to do?
Let's do a vote by, I guess you just point people out and they'll vote in favor or against.
Okay, we'll start here.
I'm against it.
No, Sandra,
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's okay.
you're for it.
Yes, sir. I'm against it.
Against. 4.
I'm in the middle.
Question for staff, why can't you abstain?
Unless there's a conflict, you have to vote.
Mr. Henry,
4.
Mr. Bryan,
4.
Mr. Robert,
Against.
Mr. Ron,
Against.
Robert.
4.
4.
There it is.
6-4-4. Okay.
That motion passed. Kim, can you come with some easy ones? Okay, item H5.
Item H5, Mahasu Associates LLC requests to change the zoning classification from AU to RU-1-9 under application number 24Z00009, text count number 2419409 in District 2.
Okay, is the applicant here? Sir, if you could get as close as you could to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is Sam Sabali. I'm with Florida Engineering Group. My address is 5127 South Orange Avenue, Orlando, Florida. And I'm here on behalf of Mahasu Associates LLC.
All right, and a little bit about what you're wanting to do there, sir.
Yes, so the parcel which we are requesting rezoning from AU to RU-1-9 is a 0.31 acre portion of a larger parcel, which is 7.71 acres. And that parcel serves for access to the main parcel. The main parcel is zoned RU-19, and all we are asking for is to rezone the parcel which serves for access. It's a flag lot to the same zoning as the main parcel, so they are consistent The requested zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and it doesn't allow or it doesn't cause any addition of any units or cause any concurrency issues. It's basically to make it consistent with the main parcel. I'll be glad to address any specific questions, but this is the request.
Okay, seeing that, I bring it to the board. We have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir?
I do have a question. How do you access the property now?
The property is not developed, but the access is through that parcel. The issue came up when we submitted an application for development of the main parcel, and staff asked us to rezone this parcel so it's consistent with the main parcel zoning. And what we are proposing, as far as the development itself, is consistent with the RU19, which is the main parcel, but this is the only legal access for that parcel. So it would serve as an access roadway. It is 50 foot wide, and because of this zoning requires a minimum of 66 feet, we had to get a variance. And we came in front of the Board of Zoning Adjustment, and we did get a variance. We worked with the adjacent property owners, and they understand what we are doing, and everybody was okay with it.
Do you know if the county has any plans for the west side or the south side to put a roadway in? Or would that be under your obligation to make that?
I do not know. I think with this request, we would have to build the roadway to connect to Bevis Road through this portion of the property, which is where the access is currently from. I don't believe the county has any plans, but I'm not aware of
So,
any.
yeah, my concern was the width of that lot being 50 feet versus 60.
Right,
and
and we
then-
did get the variance for that. The 50-foot right-of-way is adequate to provide, the,
Well, there's utilities and other
Yes.
things that have
Yeah.
to come through those in that access area, and that's, 50 feet starts getting crowded very quickly
Yes.
with drainage ditches and utility corridors and things like that.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The internal, just for clarity, but the internal right-of-way would be 50 feet and would have the same utilities, and we already looked at a cross-section going through there. Thank you.
Have you been on the property?
Yes, sir.
You know, I'm trying to answer Robert better than you did, but isn't that Beavis through there?
It is.
And then Beavis goes left, right,
It does.
it meanders.
Yes,
It's probably the only road in Merritt Island's got 9 curbs.
it does.
And
And-
I know a little bit about,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
One of the concerns on the south and the west, there is a canal, and, we're trying to stay away from that, and that's a drainage system through there, so I don't expect, there'll be any
I didn't
roadways.
think you answered, Robert
Yes,
needed
sir.
Beavis.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, sir, if you could just hang loose right there just a minute. Is anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Come on back up. That's good news.
Okay, well.
Seeing that, I'm going to bring it back to the board, see if they have any more questions for you.
All right, I appreciate that.
You good, Robert?
You making a motion, Robert?
I just had a question. So you're saying that there is currently no access, but you would be putting in access, or the county could put in a county road?
So.
Is that,
The property is not developed, so there is no, it does abut the right-of-way through the flag
Yeah.
portion of this lot. So that provides the access into the property. So it is an access, but when you develop it, you have to meet certain standards, which is, it has to be the same zoning as the main parcel. And then we would have to build a proper roadway, which would meet the county standards. And that is the intent.
okay.
Yeah, but you don't have to go all the way to the back.
We will take it all the
you
way
gonna go all the way to
to
the
the
back?
parcel, and as part of the
Okay.
development, we're gonna have a roadway, which would be the same width, the same, it would be meeting the county standards for right-of-way with all the utilities and what have you. It would be a closed drainage system, so that's why we can do it in 50 feet.
Here it is. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I recommend that we approve the zoning classification from agricultural to RU 1-9.
I'll second.
Okay, you got a motion by Robert, a second by Brian for item H5. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, item H6.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item H6 is Ross and Don Buck request a conditional use permit for a private residential boat dock. Application number is 24Z00044. Tax account number is 2953085, 2953257, located in District 3.
Okay, is the applicant here? Sir, if you could come up and get as close as you can to that microphone so we can hear you, and state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Steve D. Phillips. I live at 5235, Palmetto Drive in Melbourne Beach, and I'm a owner of East Coast Docks, and we've been hired by Ross and Don to build a dock for them on this little canal property. These properties are kind of unique as they're not tied physically to the house, or the house is up the road in the same plotted subdivision, but they have these little canal properties that gives them water access. So we have to file a conditional use permit to get the dock approved. So there's already a cup approved for the property from the previous owner, but since we are changing the design of the dock and removing the existing one, we have to file again, which will include the new property owners being on the newer cup and not use the old one that's existing now. So again, the dock will meet all the current county codes for size, setbacks, and projections. So it's not like we're asking for something different than which normally we get approved for. It's just that these unique properties, being they're not tied physically together, that we have to file for the conditional use. So
You're not 0.7 acres.
yeah, right. No, I don't think this is quite as complicated as the last couple of them, but yeah, we have to go.
Okay, if you could just hang loose right there, I think we're okay. Does anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? See, that's good news. All right, so seeing that and hearing that, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
I'll move for approval of H6.
I'll
second.
We got a motion by Debbie on H6, and Brian beat you, Erica. On a second by Brian. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Item H7.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item H7 is 3101 Gannett Plaza Avenue LLC is requesting a conditional use permit for alcohol beverages for on-premise consumption. Application number is 24Z00045. Tax account numbers are 2602423 and 2602422, located in District 4. Mr. Chair and board members, staff is requesting that you add a condition to allow for the applicant and staff to work for language to come up with a condition for them to work on easement language. So just for your edification, Utilities is looking to the property owner for an easement to maintain the lift station that's on property, and Mr. Fontanen is in the audience if you have any questions.
All right, is the applicant here? Sir, if you could state your name and address, please, for the record.
Good afternoon, Board. It's Kevin Saltzman, 5439 Robles Lane, Rockledge.
Okay, and a little bit about what you're wanting to do.
We had a conditional use permit for a two-cop license unanimously approved by the board in August of 2020. And we are simply looking to upgrade, that one's for beer and wine only. We're simply looking to upgrade to a 4-cop, same location, to include liquor.
Okay. If you could hang loose right there. Does anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Well, that's good news again.
Good.
Seeing that, I'm going to bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
I do. Sir, can you speak a little bit to what Mr. Ball said about the utility easements? You're agreeable to that?
Well, I just learned of it when I came in here this evening, so I'm here on behalf, through an authorization to act on behalf of the owner. They're out of state. But I can provide some help. But what I would like to, hearing your comment to the board, is it going to be, will my approval be, this approval for the CUP be tied to getting an easement, or just starting a conversation, which sounds like you've been unsuccessful being able to get a conversation even?
So moving forward, all we're asking is to start the conversation as a framework that may lead to a condition that would allow the county to get an easement.
Understood. So back to your point, I can help with that. It sounds like they've been kind of at a stalemate to get a good conversation going for that easement, and I can certainly help with that.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I recommend approval.
Second.
Okay, but we're going to want to recommend for approval with the condition of continued talk for the utility easement. Correct.
What he said.
Okay.
So it's just so I have it memorialized on the record is that you're recommending approval and the ability for staff and the applicant to work on language for a possible easement.
Yes.
Okay, we got a recommendation by Brian and a second by Debbie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
So still one point for further clarification. So I'm acting on behalf of the owner, but I'm also the operator of the Family Entertainment Center looking for this upgraded license. The commission meeting is December 12th.
Yes.
So my role now becomes to, and what roadblocks am I going to run into with the commission meeting if between now and then this line of communication has not been established well enough to meet your satisfaction?
Then we just direct the board of the conversation or lack thereof that has come to that point.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right, but that did pass unanimously. Okay, item H8.
William M. Brazelton III requests to change the zoning classification from RU 1-7 to RU 1-11, application number is 24Z00050, tax account number is 2800475, located in District 5.
Okay, and is the applicant here? And sir, if you could state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, William Brazelton, 315 3rd Avenue in the Atlantic.
And a little bit about what you're wanting to do there, Mr. Brazelton.
Sure thing, just looking to rezone from RU17 to RU111. That requires a larger lot size to bring this property into consistency with Res 4, which is over the entire area.
All right, and while you're right there, sir, if you could hang loose, do we have anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? We're doing good. Come on back. I bring it to the board. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
No questions. I recommend approval.
I second it.
We got a motion by Brian, a second by Erica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm sorry. I don't know what you just said. I live 335 feet from where
She's got to
this
come up to the
property is,
podium.
and I don't know
Well,
anything.
no. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but I opened it up to the audience, but we took a vote and
Mr. Chair, in an abundance of caution, it's probably best just to let her come
Well,
forward and at
is
least
it
speak
okay
into
if
the
the
mic.
applicant talks to her in the foyer?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I didn't know if she was going to do a public comment or
Mr.
not.
I don't even know what, I have no idea about it. I just got my.
Ma'am, if you could please come up to the microphone so they could catch you on the record, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
I'm just curious. I mean, I think it's important that I got the notice. Hello, I'm Karen Bales. I live at 2205 Wood Street. I am, according to this little notice, I am 335 feet east, 335 feet away from his property, which is so tiny that you don't even notice it. Only reason why I knew about it is because I got this. I just want to know, what does all of this mean? What does he want to do? I'm sure it's not going to impact. My house covers 3 streets. It covers Wood Street, Miami Avenue, and Elm Street. So I could throw a baseball probably to his lot. So that's all I want to know. Curious, never been to one of these.
He just asked for a zoning change from RU17 to RU111. And so as far as, this is just a planning and zoning board. Now, we do not know what he intends to do with the property, but, and
Mr. Chair,
Br-
I can have Paul meet with this young lady in the back, and he can go over the application with the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's your answers.
I'm just, because like I said, I don't know why some people I went around and checked to see if they got this, and a lot of people just said they didn't even know what this was. So I'm kind of like wanting to take notes.
All right, no
All
problem.
right, thank you.
But Mr. Brazelton, that passed unanimously. All right, thank you, sir. Item H9.
Jorge and Olga Carolina Tabush requested change zoning classification from GU to EU. Application number is 24Z00054. Tax account number is 2605989, located in District 2.
Is the applicant here?
Good afternoon. My name is Clayton Bennett. I'm with Bennett Engineering and Consulting, 4940 Ranch Lane Road, Melbourne, Florida, 32934. We're here on behalf of the applicant, the owner, to rezone the property. It was previously, or is developed as a 3 units, which they recently demolished. The zoning is GU. There's EU to the north, RU19, I believe it is, to the south, or RU113 to the south. What we like to do is go from GU to the EU in order to bring that zoning down so that the lot is consistent with the zoning regulations.
Mr. Bennett, while you're right there, does anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? All right, seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I recommend approval.
Second.
Got a motion by Robert, a second by Debbie on item H9. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Thank you, sir. Item H10.
Item H10 is Kellyanne Watkins, who requests a change of zoning classification from RU17 to RU111. This is application 24Z00048, tax account 2110707, District 1.
And is the applicant here? Sir, if you could come up and get as close as you could to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kellyanne Watkins. My address is 2668 Myrtle Avenue, Mills, Florida.
And a little bit about what you're wanting to do there, Mr.
I'm
Kelly.
trying to put, well, actually, I got 2 pieces of property adjacent to each other, and I was trying to change it from RU17 to RU111 to put single-family homes there.
All right, while you're right there, does anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? All right, seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions for the applicant?
And just to
Chairman.
clarify, you're gonna put one house on this property?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Well, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I move we recommend approval.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Ron, a second by Brian on item H10. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously, sir.
Okay. I have another one.
I'm sorry?
I have the next one too, but,
Okay.
yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. Well, we've got to read it into the record.
okay.
1 second. Item H11, please.
Item H11 is KVK Management and Remodeling Services, LLC, requests a change of zoning classification from RU1-7 to RU1-11. This is application 24Z00049, tax account number 2103672, District 1.
So, Mr. Chair, just so you understand, this is the property to the south, who's under the same applicant, but under different ownership. That's why we had to separate them out.
Okay. All right, sir.
Yes, sir.
You want to go ahead and say a little bit about what you want to do there?
Oh, the same thing, sir.
Okay.
Trying to put a single-family home there.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience want to speak for or against this item? All right. Seeing that, I bring it back to the board again. Do we have any questions or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we recommend approval.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Ron, a second by Robert on item H11. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Item H12.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to read item 13 and 12 together. They're companion applications, but they're tied to the same property. So items 13, which is the ADS. The Viera Company requests an ADS, which is Alternative Development Standards for the Central Viera PUD, Parcel 3A. Application number is 24 PUD 00005. Tax account number is 2631510. Portion of this is located in District 4. So the ADS would allow for waiver of 3 items. Number 1 is the lighting standards that we have about having cutoff fixtures and how we calculate the signage on the building. And the third waiver would be the allowance of the fence. So the netting is considered a fence. So those are the 3 waivers that would be considered with the ADS. And so with that, there is some conditions that the board should consider. Let me get those for you. The board may consider including a condition that the applicant must demonstrate during the site plan the process and provide applicable permits prior to the approval that the lighting configuration does not adversely affect conditions for traffic traveling along I-95. The applicant shall meet all local, state, and federal regulations regarding lighting unless expressly waived. So the companion CUP is the conditional use permit to allow for the use of the property. So under the PUD, entertainment facilities such as this requires a CUP. So with that, there is a site plan that's included in your packet of that use. So with that, you may entertain conditions that address off-site impacts such as lighting and any other off-site impacts that you may determine that needs to be addressed.
Okay, is the applicant here? Sir, if you could get as close as you could to the microphone and state your name and address for the record.
Of course, my name is Jose Pazmino, 500 West Monroe Street, Chicago, Illinois. I'm here with the applicant, Arca Murray.
And a little bit about what you're wanting to do.
Sure. So as Mr. Ball stated, we have submitted a conditional use permit application and alternative design standard. These applications will permit us to construct and operate a state-of-the-art golf entertainment venue. We are very excited about the opportunity to bring this concept to Brevard County. I have here with me Greg Copeland, who is with Topgolf, a representative of the brand that owns and operates over 100 of these venues across the U.S. We have a presentation here for you, the purpose of which will show the proposed development, how this use will complement the existing amenities in the Vera community, and the requested code amendments necessary for the facility to operate. So with that being said, Greg.
Hello, I'm Greg Copeland. I'm with Topgolf. We're based out of Dallas. Address is 8750 North Central Expressway, Dallas, Texas, 75231. So Topgolf, obviously people across the world have probably heard of us or been to our venues. We are the #1 premier golf destination for entertainment in the entire world. There's a lot of imitators, but never duplicators. We're we're the #1 company for a reason. As Jose mentioned, we have 100 venues open worldwide, over 100. 90 of those, 90 plus, are in the United States. 9 are currently operating here in the state of Florida. And we have 1 under construction in Panama City Beach, and this would be our 11th venue here in the state of Florida. But what really sets us apart is we're a community-driven type of company. We're a large name brand company across the world, but we operate as a small community partnership with all the communities that we go into. With that being said, the next slide here is kind of moving into the meat and potatoes. I'm not sure if I should operate it or if that's Mr. Ball over there. Is it? Let's see.
There should be a.
There we go. There we go. As you see here, this is our site plan. We are excited about this particular site. It's wedged in there just east of the Avenue Vera, west of I-95, and just north of the existing car dealerships right there. Feel it's a great use with the whole site in general, the booming and popping Avenue Vieira. We've got the Space Coast Complex just right up the road. We have all the baseball fields that complement the area. We're a great complement to the already vibrant sports scene here. As you see here, would be a part of an 18 plus or minus acre mixed use development. The initial investment for us to come to this site is approximately $28 million. And that's another reason we're excited. We're putting a lot of money into it, and we feel this is a great site for us. The overall amount of jobs we create is about plus or minus 200 on a permanent basis. And as you see here, it's currently vacant land, so it will be a great generator for a good tax base for the future use. Let's see here. So the venue, this is a relatively newer type of venue that we've unrolled over the last 2 years or so. It's one of the first of its kind. This would be the second one here in the state of Florida. The first one is Panama City Beach is the one under construction right now. Ours here, this site would be almost identical to that one. Of course, we're family-friendly, community, that's a key word, community-focused venue. And this particular project is a 2-story with 64 hitting bays, and kind of our bread and butter is a top tracer technology. That's what helps to make Topgolf. It tracks the ball flight, it tracks everything you can imagine, and makes our gameplay what it is, top notch. We'll have surface targets here at this particular location, and part of the community feel is the outdoor patio area. We've got large patio areas, especially in this warmer climate. It's going to draw a lot of people in, so we're very excited about that. Next slide here. I'll just touch on some of these items. We are currently a wholly owned subsidiary of Callaway Golf. I kind of said it earlier, but the community and making memories, but we, creating moments that matter. That's one of the things that we pride ourselves on, whether it's celebrating a birthday, whether it's going there for a first date, whether it's whatever the case may be, creating moments that matter. And we want to make that a staple here in the Viera and Brevard County communities. We also have some strategic partnerships with the PGA Tour, PGA of America, LPGA, First Tee Organization, and Special Olympics. And we do lots of great work with them in partnership with them. Again, community driven. That is definitely our key key point here is community driven. And then kind of a recap there at the bottom, just some of the points I've touched on. About a $28 million investment to bring Topgolf here. We create about 200 permanent jobs, which is, again, great for the community. We're employing the community here at our site and brings over about 200,000 visitors per year. And then, just again, premier destination for corporate, charity, and group entertainment. Next slide here. Topgolf, we try to draw on a lot of people who just aren't professional golfers or who don't come a lot. We try to bring in new faces, from kids all the way to adults and everything in between. As you see there, 51% of people are non-golfers, and it's really about having fun. That's really what we generate, is come here, make memories, create those memories, have fun. Doesn't matter what age you are, what skill level, you're going to have fun. And then, again, the key word there, the first one, fun. It's fun, it's affordable, tech-driven, which it's our top tracer technology, all-inclusive, all people can play, and then all weather. That's key here. If it's a hurricane, probably not, but we're open, rain, shine, wind, regular wind, not hurricane gusts. But we're open, and it's a great destination. There's that word again, the community. Huge driver for us. We're not Topgolf without being synonymous with the community in which we go. Part of that, there's some programs we have in place. Youth Play It Forward. So the high school golf teams and other youth in the community can come to Topgolf, try it out for free from 9 to 5 p.m. You know, there's the Viera High School just right up the road. There's the charter school right around the corner. There's a great base for that. This is a great community too. Lots of families live here in this community, so just a way to give back to the community. Another way of giving back, as it says there, are heroes discount. Offer discounts to our active and inactive military members, EMS, fire. Just a small way that we can give back to them. Kind of touched on it, national partners. We have partnerships with Make-A-Wish, Folds of Honor, Bunkers in Baghdad, and then a relatively newer one, which has been successful, is the Special Olympics, which has been fantastic. Volunteering and local support. Again, keep saying it, but it's very important to cement it in your head, is the word community. As you see here, we have opportunities at all venues. We set monies aside to do volunteering opportunities, whatever that may be. It's a venue by venue type of situation, but we want to give back to the communities that accept us, and again, be a partner in those endeavors. Next few slides, just some pictures. There's one thing to talk about and one thing to see some drawings, but this is an actual venue in Wichita, Kansas. This venue here, Viera, would be almost very similar to this one, maybe a little changes here and there, but what you see is kind of what you would get in a sense. Very vibrant, it's a 2-level, like I mentioned. This one's slightly smaller, but it's almost the same type of thing that we'll get here. As you walk in, just a vibrant, have fun type of atmosphere. We've got the goofy wall graphics over there and the big TV screens, and just a great place to hang out. That restaurant, even if you don't want to golf, you can just come hang out and have some food, have some drink. Just a very inviting type of place. Same room, just a different direction of which you're looking. You see some of the Topgolf fun, there's that word again, fun signage and fun lighting, just an inviting place to come hang out with your family, friends. This is the picture of the tee line, or the hitting bay rather. Again, it's an inviting place. Come sit down and have some drink, have some food with family, friends, and just kind of forget your cares for a little bit. And there's a picture of the actual tee line, the kind of up close version of it. Just very well done, very sleek design, just very cool. Again, this is great for the weather here, but the outdoor patio space. Sometimes if you're waiting for a bay, a lot of people just like to come out here and have a drink or some food options. Even if you don't want to golf, you can come here and enjoy yourself. And then these Lux space. So this is for private events. You can rent this space out. It's still open to everybody that can walk into, but you can rent this space out and close it off and just make it your own. So it's, again, you see the vibrant colors there and the vibrant designs. That's just part of our fun, inviting feel for Topgolf. And then this is a great picture of the exterior lighting at night. You can see there the heavy concentration of the lights are close to the tee line, and as you get further away out towards the net poles, the lights die down significantly. And this is just a great, and we'll get to another picture here in a few moments, but this is a great example of what it looks like. Until you see it, you don't really quite grasp what it looks like, but this is a great representation of the nighttime conditions. And then, as Jose mentioned, the conditional use permit. So as part of our process here, we have to get this approved because it's required for proposed commercial entertainment and amusement enterprises. Touched on it a little bit ago, but we're a great complement to the Space Coast Complex that's just up the road. Anticipated hours of operation are Sunday to Thursday, 9 a.m. to 12 a.m., and Friday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. And the most important part to note is all the requirements of the Section 62 of the Brevard County Code. We will meet those standards, and we'll get to that slide here in a second. You want me to just keep rolling, Hassan? You good?
Sure.
Okay.
I got questions for Hussam.
Perfect.
So don't let him get away.
I'll wrangle you over here.
The ADS is a separate item.
If you could come up to the mic, please, sir.
Sure. The alternative design standard application is a separate item, or do you guys need to vote on it separately, or should we jump into it?
No, it'd be separately.
Okay, so I think this is the end of the conditional use.
Yes, we will meet all of these standards per the Section 62 that's outlined here. And that's it.
Well, I don't
For the
think we
CP.
have anyone in the audience who wants to speak for or against this item, so I'm going to bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions on item?
I got, I'd like, Hussam probably, these guys are from Chicago.
Mr. Hassan, come up here.
Hussam, I was trying to ascertain if you got two access points here. You got one by the dealerships and then one from the other facility? Is there two here?
Yeah, that's correct. My name is Hassan Kamal with BSC Consultants. Address is 312 South Harbor City Boulevard. Yeah, there's an access on the south from Bromley Drive.
That's going to go through
That's
Lexus
by the car
and all
dealerships.
that.
And then there's another access through the avenues. The Viera Company retained an access agreement to allow access to this parcel when the avenues was developed.
When I first seen the site, or preliminary site plan, I said, they're not going to be shooting that ball toward the Lexus deal. And I realized.
They wisely turned it the other way.
I could just imagine. But anyway, thanks.
Sir, are you done?
I'm done with this.
With the CUP, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'm gonna need a motion on item H12.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just, tried to squeeze in before the presentation started, but I didn't get a chance to. I just want to get the county attorney's recommendation or guidance on this. I assume that it's appropriate for me to recuse myself. I do work for BSE Consultants. We do a lot of work with the Vera company, and while I'm super supportive and very, very excited about this project, I want to make sure that it would be appropriate for me to recuse myself from
Yes,
voting
ma'am,
for
on
this.
both items, you can
Yes,
recuse
sir.
yourself, and we'll make sure we give you the right forms to file with the clerk.
Thank you so
here.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you on that. And we got a motion by Brian for approval. I need a second. A second by Robert. All those in favor on item H12, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair, can I just, for clarification, did that motion include the board shall consider a condition that the applicant must demonstrate during the site plan process and provide applicable permits prior to the approval of the lighting configuration that does not adversely affect conditions for traffic traveling along I-95? The applicant shall meet all local, state, and federal regulations regarding lighting unless expressly waived.
Yes.
Okay, and you already read in item H13. Who wants to speak on that? For the request for the ADS?
My name is Hassan Kamal with BSE Consultants, 312 South Harbor City Boulevard. There is an ADS, and ADS, we're kind of used to the abbreviation. It's Alternative Development Standards. To give the board some background, the project is located with the Central Vieira PUD, and within that PUD, there was a set of documents that was generated years ago which helped the project take the form that it has, and has some special conditions and special allowances for that. And to address the unique features of this type of development, which you obviously don't see everywhere, there was 3 items that we needed to include in the alternative development standards. Mr. Ball referred to them earlier, but basically what we did is that we took the PUD and we created a parcel that's specific to this location. So these conditions wouldn't be applicable to any other project within the PUD. So you can't go put up a 165-foot fence somewhere else. It's specific to this particular parcel. So the 3 conditions deal with the lighting standards that we discussed earlier that allow this kind of operation to take place. The netting, and those lighting standards only apply to the driving range portion of the project. You can't, the normal in the parking lots or any other portion still applicable to the county code. And similar to the netting, height is only allowed for the driving range portion of the operation. Any other fencing that's within the site has to meet the current county code requirements. And because of the unique shape of the building, we included language in the definition of how we calculate on-premises signs. Normally, that's based upon the perimeter of the building, but this building only has 3 sides because of the open bay. So we clarified that definition to allow the signage that they propose and calculate that open bay, include that open bay side as part of the building frontage in the square footage calculation. I'll be happy to answer any questions about those conditions.
We have any questions from the board for the applicant?
I have no questions. I motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe we actually voted on the first one.
Yes,
We-
item
we got a-
H12.
We got a second, but I didn't hear us vote. Did we?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I thought we did.
Yeah, we did.
okay.
Now, this is item
Then I vote for it.
H13. I got a motion by Brian and a second by Erica on item H13. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair, and that included the language about the lighting not creating adverse.
Brian?
Yes.
You had the motion on the second one, too?
Yes.
What about
He asked about the
Lighting, yes.
and the
And
netting.
the ADS. Mhm.
All the verbiage.
What about the conditional use permit for alcohol?
So the CUP for this is not for alcohol. It is for the outdoor entertainment.
Okay.
So just so if So we do allow to serve alcohol when it's tied to a restaurant, and we had conversations with them prior to. So as long as it's tied with 51% of the general revenue, they can do it administratively. It's only when it's not, then they would require a CUP for that.
I just didn't want to see them come back after all this.
Yes, sir.
I did just want to clarify that, and my name is Eric Ubelar, also with Arco Murray Construction, 500 West Monroe, Chicago, Illinois. Just wanted to get clarification on the board may also consider including a condition. Is that condition now included in the approval for a signed and sealed document from a professional engineer? Because it's a little subjective in nature from a standpoint of glare versus foot candles that you would typically sign off on. So I just want to make sure we understand what the goalposts are.
So the way, here, let me get,
That should be a site plan issue, not
yeah.
not us.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if we ought to get involved in that one.
All we're saying is that they have to demonstrate at site plan that the lighting configuration does not adversely affect the conditions for traffic. So it's not per se a sign and seal plan. You just need to demonstrate to staff satisfaction you're not going to adversely impact.
Understood. I just want to make sure it's crystal clear that these light fixtures are not full cutoff fixtures, so.
We usually don't get involved in the design.
Understood.
And the lighting, too.
Understood. Okay. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry?
Meeting adjourned.
Yes, meeting adjourned.
Gosh.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.